slow is not about trying to make everything in life slow. If you're going slow all the time, you're an idiot. There are times that you need to be fast, but equally, if you're going fast all the time, you're also an idiot. Like you need to be able to alternate between go fast when it makes sense to go fast and when you want to, and when it's time
Yeah.
to slow down, recognize that you can and should slow down.
Today I am with Gino Perrotte. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Perotti, like karate.
Oh, Perotti. Okay. I like that. He's a keynote speaker, communication expert, and creator of the Slow framework for cultivating presence and wisdom in leadership and in all sorts of situations that I'm sure he'll have some stories for us to share today. He combines over 2 decades of experience in this corporate leadership and academic teaching space, helping leaders communicate more effectively and really build careers that align with their values. So, Gino, thank you so much for being here. Please share with us, for listeners that might not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about your background, what led you into this space?
I'm happy to, and I'll try and make it as concise. It's been a 26-year career so far, so let's see how concise I can make 26 years. I've been teaching since I've been 20, well, I guess at 15 years old if I'm being all the
Wow.
way back. I started as a gymnastics coach. And
Hmm.
so that's where basically I learned how to take complex things. You look at an Olympic athlete of where this potential um, gymnast might be 15 years down the road, and how do you reverse engineer into their very first day in the class as just a young toddler.
Hmm.
So that experience just really taught me how to be able to think from the end product down to the beginning steps.
Hmm.
And then I transitioned into the corporate world and I was a corporate trainer, the learning and development manager for two real estate management companies. We managed apartment communities around the United States. So I
Hmm.
worked with our management staff, our maintenance staff to get them trained on the way our company did things, and just like basic environmental, like OSHA type of standards. Then I transitioned to the banking industry. So I maintained my career as a corporate trainer, went into banking, did that for about a year and a half. Through that experience, realized I am not banking and finance is not for me. I'm a creative person and I much rather focus on people and what's known as the soft skills, the relational skills.
Hmm.
So, right around that time, I was also working on my master's degree. My undergrad is in business management. My master's then was in interpersonal communication. And
Hmm.
that's an intersection of psychology, sociology, and anthropology rolled into one. So basically, when humans get together in a space, how do we create, maintain identities through this process called communication? That
Hmm.
also then launched my academic career. So I've been teaching in academia since 2008, part time initially, and then full time for many years. And I'm full time now in New York City at a college and part time still at several schools. So got my hand in a bunch of different areas. Um,
Hmm.
but one of the reasons that you've invited me here on the podcast is also because I have a small boutique consultancy on the side and a learning and development company called Right Brain Journeys.
Hmm.
And I've worked with organizations, often with their mid level executives, like around 30 years old. These are people that have been with the company for multiple years, perhaps started their professional journey with the company. And
Hmm.
now they've gotten to the point that they are experienced enough to have a leadership role, but they may have no leadership background. So
Hmm.
that's why they step in and hire someone like my background to be able to work with these people to teach them basically leadership communication skills to
Hmm.
complement their company corporate knowledge, the history, as well as their subject matter expertise in their area. And then all that brings to what's going to be a focus of what we're talking about today is my latest area with my consulting work is helping people basically decelerate, helping us slow down from this hustle culture, which has been promoted for over a decade now. And I've happily participated in until a few years ago when I decided enough was enough and
Hmm.
have been diving into the research that from other people, basically looking at experts, but also have been doing my own experiments with it the last 3 years to learn
Hmm.
how do I slow down. And that's all developed into what I'm calling the slow framework.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing what inspired that idea. For listeners hearing about this for the first time, can you walk us through what SLOW stands for?
Sure. My slow framework is savoring, listening, openness, and wisdom. So
Hmm.
each of these strategies are research backed. And what I mean by that is I had mentioned I dive deep into the literature from a bunch of experts on topics of burnout, on topics of rest, on topics of the slow movement, which is an actual thing that started in Italy back in the mid 80s in protest to the first McDonald's opening at the Spanish Steps in Rome, interestingly enough. I put together the research from all of those areas and then started to apply it in my own summer sabbaticals. So as an educator, I have the opportunity to be able to take my summers off, and I didn't for a long time. As someone living in New York City, it's expensive. So I
Hmm.
had been taking those extra summer assignments for income,
Hmm.
which has its benefits.
Hmm.
But now that I'm in my mid 40s, it also has its detriments. And a
Hmm.
few years ago, I kind of just realized that what I needed more than money was rest in space, to just be. I know that sounds like kind of corny, but I had spent over a decade with my own company and my own career really strategizing next step, next step, next step. And I
Hmm.
achieved many of those things. And now it was kind of, well, I just need to sit and marinate in what I've created for a little bit and ask myself, do I like what I've created? Is this what I still want? Um, so the slow framework came from that research as well as my own time marinating on my summer sabbaticals in amazing Italy. And
Hmm.
I would be happy if you want me to explain what each of those, the savoring, listening, openness, and wisdom, actually means.
Yeah, I would love you to. And also, I'm just, I would imagine that there's probably two ways of thinking about, the value that you bring with this framework to companies and to your own life, to your own personal life, to maybe probably every interaction that you have in both your careers, right? In an academic world as well, is like slowing down to actually create more efficient, more effective communication, which actually probably ends up saving tons of time and preventing tons of problems. So yeah, tell me more about how each aspect helps in that way.
Sure. The first one, savoring, is my favorite. Savoring is an emotion regulation strategy. If I'm
Mhm.
remembering the psychologist's name right, I believe his name is Fred Bryant, who did this research. And
Mhm.
what he discovered is that when you actually pause and linger to really appreciate, like bring your senses to an experience and be mindful of it, be present in that experience,
Mhm.
we start to experience more pleasure, not just pleasure in the moment of the experience, but because we're creating a multisensory snapshot of that experience, we then can continue re experiencing that pleasure over time. And of
Mhm.
course, I'll give an example. Um, I'm like many people who work in an office. At lunchtime, I often just have food for fuel. It's something convenient, hopefully something somewhat healthy and nutritional, but I'm not eating for pleasure. I'm often working through lunch and shoving food into my mouth just to put calories into my body, right? That's the opposite of savoring because you're
Mhm.
multitasking. You think you're being efficient, and you are to the degree that you're doing multiple things at once. But if productivity is your only goal, if we're engineering pleasure out of everything, we're engineering the human experience out of it.
Mhm.
And then what I would argue is humans are motivated, most humans are motivated to seek pleasure. So that if you're denying yourself pleasure consistency in these key daily touch points, such as sleeping until you feel rested, enjoying the pleasure of food, then you're going to start maybe overindulging in things. So
Mhm.
excessive drinking, excessive eating,
Right, like you're not
high,
getting the pleasure in the simple pleasures of life. You're gonna seek them elsewhere. That makes sense.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's the idea of savoring, is really appreciate and take in, and then you actually imprint that experience, that feeling of that pleasure in your body. And then you
Hmm.
can mentally even go back and keep re-experiencing that pleasure without actually having to eat that thing again, for example.
Wow.
The idea of listening is connected to listening to others, of course. That's the most way. Listening inside of yourself, which I'll get to in a moment. And then also listening to time and place.
Hmm.
So the first one, listening to others, I won't go into too much here, but it's the idea of choosing your style of listening. There are four main styles. There's a great little survey assessment that helps you know what your dominant style is, but it's
Hmm.
active, involved, um, passive, and detached listening.
Hmm.
Active is the sexy one, right? That's what everyone wants to do. Active listening, you try to be an active listener. And it is the most, trying to think of the word I want to use. It's the most rich experience in that you're going to pick up the most data from the environment when you're actively listening, but it's
Hmm.
also energetically costly. It takes way too many resources to do that for an extended period.
Hmm.
I teach 75-minute classes. There's no way my students can be active listeners for 75 minutes. They can come
Yeah.
in for 10 minutes, but then I have to structure this so that they don't need, they'll get to be able to do switch into one of the other styles for 5 minutes before they go back. So um, the next one, listening within yourself, is understanding the connection between your values and the work that you're doing.
Hmm.
There's an amazing free assessment. I'm not connected with it because I'm always promoting it. So people might think I get some kind of kickbacks. I have no affiliation with them, but it's called the VIA Character Strength Survey at
Hmm.
viacharacter.org.
Hmm.
It's a free scientific assessment. Takes 10 minutes to take. They don't charge you money. You do fill out an account, so maybe they collect your data. But um, there's 24 values that are common amongst people. Everyone will have the same 24, but based on how you take the assessment, you'll have a unique ranking of 1 through 24. And that'll be a fantastic snapshot if you have no idea what your values are of what's most important to you.
Hmm.
So you don't need to have like all of your top five consistently showing up in everything, but I try to use like a dating metaphor. You have this
Hmm.
ideal partner that you've written down. These are their qualities. Do you need to have all those qualities to have a happy relationship? No. Do you need to have three of the five? Probably. Yeah. So you need to have enough of these. No one's going to be perfect. No job's going to be a perfect fit, but perfect doesn't need to, you don't need perfect to be happy,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of listening to yourself, is really understanding those values. And the leading burnout researchers, Christina Masloch and Michael Leiter, in their book The Burnout Challenge, they basically list that as one of the key factors that leads to burnouts, is a value mismatch between the
Mhm.
people and the organization.
Wow.
Then the idea of listening to time and place is recognizing that we are organic beings living on an organic planet, and this has seasons and cycles. And when we mess with that, there are consequences for that.
Mm.
A really simple one, not to be too dramatic, but a lot of people can relate to this. I was recently in Hawaii for the first time. And when I tasted the pineapple there, I kind of just realized that's the first time I've ever really tasted pineapple, if that makes sense. Like, that's how pineapple should taste. And when you go to
That sounds,
Italy,
yeah, it sounds like a unique experience to taste the fresh pineapple close to where it's grown, not like shipped across a country and sprayed with a bunch of preservatives.
yep. Same with tomatoes in Italy. You haven't tasted a tomato until you've tasted Italian tomatoes. That's
Yeah.
what a tomato should taste like. So when I'm saying the idea of time and place is eating, this is the slow food movement, basically
Hmm.
eating what is locally grown. There is an immediate pleasure benefit to that. It's
Hmm.
supposed to be here. We don't have to pick it early and, like you're saying, then try to artificially ripen it. So
Right.
this idea of listening to time and places, recognizing where we're at, literally, physically, where are we at? What are the advantages to being here? What are the limitations to being here? And if
Hmm.
we try to overcome those limitations, what are the potential consequences?
Hmm.
And is it worth it?
Right. And so that's listening. And then what is the O and the W? What did you talk about
Open?
those already?
No, not yet. Yep, moving
Oh,
in
okay.
that direction. The idea of openness is
Oh,
staying curious.
yeah.
So it's the idea. Again, I'm in New York, so at Central Park they have the horse and buggies. The horse has blinders on because if
Hmm.
horses see what's going on, they can get spooked and then just take off. Right? That'd be bad.
Hmm.
When we are hustling all the time, this glamorized word, we are in often fight, flight, or freeze mode. We're pumped with
Hmm.
adrenaline and cortisol. That puts up our human blinders. We're designed to see only what's in front of us. So we have this narrow vision, and we're no longer open to all these other possibilities and options that are
Hmm.
completely surrounding us.
Mm-hmm.
So when you slow down, you start to reduce those fight, flight, or freeze hormones, and you literally see what's more around you. It's always been there. You now just can see it for the first time and realize that you have other options, which means you can make changes if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of wisdom is being able to integrate all of these experiences into some sense of meaning and purpose in your life. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're slowing down, why am I doing what you're doing? And now that I'm firmly in middle age, it's not unusual as I'm talking to other people and reading about those who've already been through midlife. It's a very normal awakening into the next phase where you're realizing, what is this all about? What do I really want out of this experience? What can I really give?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's wisdom, is to be able to integrate all of your knowledge, head knowledge, heart knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and live a life basically with purpose that's aligned with what you value.
So would you say that that's what effective leadership looks like? It's a leader who's implementing each of these SLOW, you're going to remind me again, the
Slow framework,
savoring, listening,
listening,
openness,
openness,
and
wisdom.
wisdom. I got it. That they're really implementing and embodying this in their own personal life. Is that really what makes an effective leader, or is it like them doing something else
Good
at work?
question.
Hmm.
I'll echo the words of Carlo Petrini, who is the founder of the slow food movement. And
Hmm.
Carlo, this is going to be a paraphrase. Carlo basically says that the slow food movement, is about being able to choose our rhythms that make sense.
Hmm.
And so there are times you want to go fast because it's fun. Sometimes, you got a new car and it's got a good engine, so wide open road, you want to go fast. It's thrilling. And there are times you're going to be late for your flight if you don't run. So you better hustle and get to your flight. Makes sense. Go ahead and rush. But then there are other times it doesn't, and we're just stuck on autopilot. So
Hmm.
the idea of the slow framework for effective leadership is, yes, it starts actually with the principle of lead yourself first. Are
Hmm.
you stuck in reactive mode, which is what people have been talking about now for a decade? Is a lot of leaders are in the weeds, basically, in the
Hmm.
trenches with their people, and not able to zoom out and take the big picture view of things because they're just constantly trying to respond and putting out fires all the time. So you would practice slow first with yourself,
Hmm.
but then also asking yourself bigger questions. Are you providing the opportunity for your employees to also practice slow? Do you
Hmm.
have a policy where they should be getting out to do some savoring, pretty much? Or do you expect
Hmm.
them and praise them for being chained to their desk all the time?
Hmm. Right. So is there like some flexibility with employees to that allows them to um, implement some of this stuff in their own time? And then how does it tie into communication in the workplace or as a leader? Would you
Sure.
say?
Well, the first one I'd say is untraditional in the way that people typically think about communication. But as a
Mhm.
communication expert, there are
Mhm.
two main channels, right? Verbal words and then nonverbal, like I'm using gestures and eye contact right now. So this untraditional one I'm going to mention would be under the category of nonverbal. And
Mhm.
that's that we have to realize as human beings that we have what are called mirror neurons and we mimic one another. And
Mhm.
studies even say we mimic people on TV. So when we see humans, we will sync up to other humans.
Mhm.
When you're in a leadership role, you are typically the most visible person. And a lot of time, the corporate narrative is woven around you. So, in other words, you become the idealized role model for everyone to aspire to.
Mhm.
So, when you are practicing this recognition of your humanity, and what I mean by that is recognizing that we're organic beings, that you're an organic being, you need to have cycles of rest and growth. Growth is often like, now it's springtime, thank God. There's going to be a rapid growth pretty soon. All of a sudden, it's like nothing. And then in 3 days, there's going to be like 3 inches of a shoot coming out of the ground, right? That's hustling. Oh my gosh, that just pushed out of nowhere. But they've
Mhm.
just been dormant for 3 months, resting to prepare for that hustle, right?
Yeah.
So that's the question, for leaders is communication wise, what are you unconsciously broadcasting by your energy? Are you hustling constantly? What nonverbals are you sending out for people to mimic? Because that energy is going to be mirrored in your
Mhm.
employees. and is it
Mm,
effective energy?
right.
And
So
then
almost
verbal,
slowing down and looking at yourself requires actually saying, well, what am I seeing in my company? What am I hearing? And um, kind of starting with taking care of yourself, it sounds like.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. And I'd say words, the other side of communication is look at literally what you're praising, what is coming out of your mouth. It
Mhm.
can start even with a social media analysis if you post regularly. What
Mhm.
words, when you write your captions, what
Mhm.
words do you use most frequently? That's going
Mhm.
to give you a snapshot into what's in the front of your conscious mind as to what your priorities are.
Mm. Yeah, fascinating. So just trying to pay attention to what you're seeing and how that might be reflecting your own internal state, and then the words that you're speaking most frequently as a way to um I guess that's like an openness, but it's also a listening to yourself, right? In terms of the SLOW
Yeah,
framework.
yeah,
Hmm.
you definitely. That you're listening to yourself, correct? So that would be the first one. And the idea of openness would be, can you, should you, could you change the vocabulary that you use that creates a new possibility for something?
Hmm.
If you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, and that's
Hmm.
the idea of the power of not yet. So that's the idea of words is if you just simply say, I can't, it is true, but it's an incomplete sentence. I can't right now is what basically what Dweck's work is. But if you just stop it, I can't, words, our brains listen to the words that come out of our mouths. So then you've created a reality, I can't, period, versus I can't yet.
Hmm.
So when you
Got
switch
it.
up that language, it creates new possibilities, which is literally openness.
No, I love that. What other are there, like, how does somebody do these things, right? Like, are there tools or skills that you think are really helpful to slow down, listen to yourself? I mean, obviously meditation comes to my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is why the slow framework, why I like it so much with the SLOW. Literally start with savoring. So I'll tell you how I've started to incorporate that into my life. Living
Hmm.
in New York, you again, we sync up to other humans. People
Hmm.
are like little poodles around here. What I mean by that is, poodles are little, but their legs go a million miles an hour when they walk down. Everyone in the
Hmm.
morning when they're walking to the subway is like no one's paying attention to anybody. They're the horse with the blinders and they have the poodle legs. They're walking 100,000 miles an hour trying to get to the train before it leaves.
Yeah.
Nobody is paying attention to the flowers that are poking out, the dogs
Hmm.
that are poking out, the amazing variety of shoes that are everybody's wearing. So
Hmm.
I try to how do I practice it? I try to leave an extra 5 minutes. Sometimes I can't, but sometimes I do. So I can intentionally walk slower.
Hmm.
If I'm not thinking about it, I will end up going like a poodle as well because we sync to the energy. It's a flow, right?
Hmm.
You just start flowing with the crowd. So sometimes
Right.
I have to decide how slow or fast I want to walk and set that.
Hmm.
And if I'm walking slower, then I do start paying attention to the things around me. I make eye contact with the dogs. They're very friendly. And people sometimes are, sometimes not. So we try not to look at a bunch of people, but look at dogs. I will look at people's shoes. I appreciate shoes very much. I'll say, oh, I like those shoes. And then ask myself why. I like them because I like the color. I like them because I like the fabric, whatever. Ooh, I really don't like those shoes. Why don't I like those? So it's giving me some insight. It's some listening as well as some savoring put in together. Or when I get into Manhattan and emerge from the subway to walk to work, I'll look up at the buildings.
Hmm.
Amazing details are up on the top of the building. So it's just like a simple step that really adds very little minutes to my day, but it adds a significant amount of pleasure because it forces me to be literally where I'm at in that space versus thinking 10 minutes when I'm in my office and getting ready to go into the classroom. What am I supposed to say? What am I doing? No, it's just calibrating. That's the word. I'm calibrating my own rhythm so that when I
Yeah.
step in for my students, I have a more centered energy for them. And then they can mimic that energy in the classroom, which is conducive to learning.
That's so important, I think, especially working with young folks like you do. And it sounds like you have so much, you bring so much intention to
Hmm.
what energy you bring
Hmm.
into a room, which
Hmm.
I would say that's a leadership quality, one of the most important leadership qualities out there, right? So you're really embodying the work that you do. This has been such a fascinating conversation. I'm so sad that we're coming up to our time today. Where can folks go to learn more about your work, specifically, this leadership work, the slow framework? Where can they find out more?
Please. I am centralized in one place, LinkedIn. So
Hmm.
you'll see my name. It should be here. You can probably see it in my box here, Gino Perrotti, Perrotte. There's only one Gino with that name spelled that way, so it makes it really easy and convenient.
Great. We have a unique name.
Yeah, it is. It is helpful in that respect. Behind my banner, you'll see the slow framework as well, and I
Mhm.
have a newsletter that's called Conscious Communication. So I invite you to subscribe to that LinkedIn newsletter, and you'll get communication tips. And these days, it's very much focused on slow, as that's the direction that I'm moving with my work. But reach out to me. I love having conversations. We'll connect, and then feel free to send me a message, and we can chat.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation so far. I hope we can continue and in the future stay in touch. And it just sounds like you bring so much meaning. You have such a meaningful career that you've built for yourself in teaching and with companies and, shifting cultures across organizations. So thank you for the really impactful work that you do. And we'll be sharing more about this on LinkedIn as well. We'll stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Heather, thank you. I appreciate it.